All right, let's dive into it for a midweek edition of the Tall Can Audio Podcast. Matt Robinson with you, as always, in the TCA studio in beautiful Bytown, Canada. And Bytown, Canada today feels a little fired up. Feels a little divided, a little conflicted. A lot of things going on here. We're going to talk about the captain, Brady Tkachuk, here in just a moment. I should say, just quickly off the top, we did mention on the Monday morning show where Graham Nichols sat in as co-host. Thought Graham did a nice job. We like Graham. Hope you checked that one out. It's up now at tallcanaudio.com or in whatever podcast app you're hearing me right now if you did happen to miss it. Mentioned to him that we were scheduled to have Steve Lloyd here middle of the week, and Lloydie texted earlier on Tuesday morning, said, yeah, not going to be able to make it, that he was battling just to get through the TSN 1200 morning show, not feeling overly great. And so we were going to have to reschedule. No big deal, although we won't hold this against Lloydie necessarily. It does feel like, doesn't it? This is happening to us a little bit more here over the last little while. I don't know. We're going to have to work on that. We're going to have to look into that. Certainly Lloydie, though. He's always been good to us, always treated us well. So I know he's not pulling the chute on us. So anyway, a quick one today. It'll be just me. Some other things we can get into over the next few days or the coming weeks. Certainly lots of baseball, playoff hockey races, all of that stuff has been well covered on the show here lately and will be in the future. And we will endeavor to get Lloydie in here when he's feeling a little bit better. But that's why it's just me for today. Second thing I should mention is the same thing I always want to mention off the top. And it's beer. This is the West Coast IPA from the Whippersnapper Brewing Company. We had our buddy Ian McMartin, the head brewer over there, on the show a week or so ago. And this was one of the ones that we sampled at the time, but also one of the ones he left me a couple of because he knows I like it, and he's a good guy that way. I want to shout them out because here throughout the rest of March, they've still got a couple of cool fundraisers going on. If you buy their Carol Ann beer, or they've got a couple of pizzas in the brewery, and I hear nothing but good things about the pizza. I have tried it once or twice myself. Rob mentioned on the show not too long ago that somebody at work had mentioned to him, hey, you got to go to Whippersnapper and try the pizza. And he's like, I've been to Whippersnapper for the beer. And that person was like, oh, yeah, no, like they weren't much of a craft beer person, but were showing up mainly for the pizzas. So they're doing good stuff over there. They have 2 pizzas and this Carol Ann beer. Throughout the month of March, the proceeds from that go to the Canadian Cancer Society. So you can have a good beer and a good pizza and have it go towards a good cause. And look, sometimes you got to talk yourself into a reason to have a beer, right? Like give yourself an out, give yourself a reason to, no, I'm doing this one for charity. This beer, this pizza isn't because I need it. It's because it's good for somebody else. So we will link to the Whippersnapper Brewing Company in our show notes at tallcanaudio.com. But just drop by, pick up a couple of beers, have yourself a pizza. You won't be disappointed. You'll be hearing more about their brewery here over the next couple of weeks because their blueberry pancake spring staple is about to come out, and Matt gets big into that one. And so you'll hear more from that brewery here over the next little while once I get my hands on a couple of those. So look, this will be quick here today. As I mentioned, I thought I was going to have a co-host to bounce some things off of a guest. And so I'm not really prepared with a bunch of when you're putting these shows together. Some things are better, when you have somebody to kick it back and forth with. Other things you can get away with talking about on your own. So I hadn't done a whole lot of prep for a solo show, and yet that's where we have landed here on a Tuesday afternoon. And I went back and forth on this. I watched it play out on Monday night, and I kind of went, maybe there's something here. And then I went, who really cares? But on later into Monday evening and on Tuesday throughout the day, this became a thing amongst Ottawa hockey fans. And we're talking about Brady Tkachuk not engaging with JT Miller after he cross-checks Thomas Chabot in the wrist. Chabot is out. They haven't given us an exact timeline, but it's going to be a while. He'll be reevaluated when they get back to Ottawa after Tuesday night's really big game against Detroit. And I find the debate fascinating. And you got to really dig through the shit, right? As is always the case with online discourse. There are people with legitimate points and people who can offer a real argument against why this should have happened, why this shouldn't have happened. And other people that just want to bathe themselves in snark. Other people that can't possibly get past the fact that this is Brady Tkachuk, and I love Brady, so I won't ever say a bad word against him. I hate Brady Tkachuk, so I won't ever say a good word for him. Like, you remember that scene? That's pretty gross. It's very early on in Jurassic Park, like right after they land on the island, and you go up to the two scientists, and they're digging through a giant pile of Stegosaurus shit or something like that. I remember being a kid, and we weren't going to be allowed to watch that movie because we were told we were going to be scared. Like, my parents didn't want us to watch it. My mom, mainly. You know, people getting murdered and people getting eaten and all of this kind of stuff. And, you know, you and your little sisters, you'd be too scared. We're not going to. So we're driving home one weekend, and my dad pulls off at the Canadian Tire in Port Perry. Now, I know this was 1,000 years ago, because I don't remember Canadian Tire having video cassettes. And this is it. We bought it on VHS. You can tell we're out here now. We're on a bit of a tangent. We went from talking about Brady Tkachuk to talking about the Port Perry Canadian Tire. I remember for sure this was the Canadian Tire in Port Perry that we stopped, and we finally had cracked Dad. He's going to buy Jurassic Park for us now that it's out on tape. And we'll watch it on that Sunday night when we get home. And we all sit down and, I don't know, kind of half being prepared to be scared or for it to be inappropriate or whatever else. And Mom is sitting down and watching it with us. But you're no more than 20 minutes into the movie and you're elbow deep into brontosaurus shit or whatever the hell. This is inappropriate in a way nobody really saw coming. It wasn't the murder. It wasn't the guys being bitten in half or whatever. It's digging through brachiosaurus shit. This is now just me flexing at how many dinosaurs I might know. That's what Twitter is like now, is trying to dig through giant mountains of shit to get to reasonable people making reasonable counterpoints and arguments for why you should do something and why you shouldn't do something. And that's what this was. And that's what this has looked like ever since this JT Miller cross-check on Thomas Chabot. And look, the Sens couldn't afford to lose any defense. And somehow they lost two more on Monday night as Lassie Thompson and Thomas Chabot leave the game. Neither one are going to play on Tuesday. It's funny, eh? As we prepare for another big wide tangent. No, we'll keep this one a little closer to home. For weeks, everyone has been looking at this Ottawa-Detroit game as like the biggest game of the year for the Sens. Gotta have it. Detroit's not even in the playoffs right now. The Islanders have passed them, and they hold down the second wild card. Doesn't mean this Detroit game is no longer important. It certainly is. You would love to put those guys behind you and have one less team, for you to hopscotch. Interesting, Matt. For you to have to get over and get by down the stretch here. The Islanders are certainly going to be relevant. The Bruins are going to be relevant. But it felt for weeks like this Red Wings game was, this will be the one that, you knock them down and take their playoff spot. You could knock them down, but they don't currently have a playoff spot. Point being, as everybody knows, Thomas Chabot and Lassie Thompson will not be available for that game. And the Thomas Chabot one has gotten some attention here lately because it is JT Miller, noted loser, who cross-checks Chabot with like a second left in the first period. Chabot does not return. Ottawa has to play the majority of the game with just 4 defensemen. To their credit, they hold the just hapless New York Rangers to 9 shots throughout the entire game, which would be unheard of at the best of times, right? When you have your top 6 defenders out there for 60 straight minutes, to hold any team to under 10 shots is wild. To do it with just 4 defensemen and none of them being your top 2, depending on where you stand on Zub and whatever else, the rest of the team stepped up and really played hard. But this comes on the heels of Brady Tkachuk on his podcast having an awful lot to say about the Austin Matthews injury, Radko Gudas, and the fact that the Leafs didn't stand up properly for Matthews, which is true, which has been beaten to death, but is true. He goes on his own podcast with his idiot brother, and they make a big deal out of it. And it's an easy thing to do, right? Like, everybody loves to punch down on Toronto, and that's fair. Toronto, the Leafs like to paint themselves as the Yankees of the National Hockey League, but don't win. Now, we can poke fun at the Yankees here too. The Yankees haven't won a lot lately, but the Yankees have won an awful lot more over the last several decades than the Leafs, certainly. So there's this disconnect on the success of the Leafs versus the weight and the gravity that the Leafs carry around the NHL. And this was a thing. Like, even some of our friends here in the local media, this happened on a Thursday night, the Austin Matthews, Radko Gudas thing. The following Wednesday morning, it gets mentioned in a piece here in Ottawa, because that's when they have had an opportunity to connect with one of their insiders for the first time since then. And so it gets included into this piece that they're working on. It's been a week. And it's another market. Well, we got to have a chance here to punch down on the Leafs. Fair enough. Have at it. Brady Tkachuk and his brother go on their podcast, and it's a lot of big talk. And in this case, I often find this podcast is interesting because I like the idea when athletes give more of themselves and put themselves out there a bit. I get tired of the whole Elliot Friedman, we can't judge athletes for not talking and then judge them when they talk. There's some truth to it, but that's his way of opting out of any criticism of players that he's probably communicating with throughout the league. So, but this is the risk, right? The NBA does this a bit. They have some really good player podcasts, but they don't have this false toughness element to the league. Like, there are tough players in the NBA and there are not tough players in the NBA, much like in any other sport. But there are players who have their own pods, and when they travel to other cities, they sit down with guys on the other team that they happen to be buddies with, and then they go out and they play and they whatever. But we all know what it is. The NHL has this very false bravado of like, yeah, no, I expect you, good fan, to believe that player A and player B, who played together in junior and won a World Junior Championship together and have been to the Olympics together, when the puck drops, they hate each other. They don't. They don't. But we need you to believe that because hockey's different. There's this weird thing that goes on there. And this Tkachuk podcast is like the tip of the spear. They love to talk like that, even though Matthew has never been tough on anyone. Matthew is a pest. He's a very talented player. He's a very good player. But he's not a tough player. He's a pest. Brady is a tough player, but Brady gets dragged into a lot of things here that his dumbass brother says, and it's on their brotherly podcast. So now Brady's got to wear it too. But this was Brady just as much. And the quote is, if you go after our best players, we'll go after your best players. And this is in reference to the Austin Matthews, Radko Gudas thing, where Morgan Riley and Brandon Carlo and William Nylander are just standing around and they don't do anything. And the Leafs deserve to be ripped for that. And in other sports, on their player podcasts, it would probably be commented on. It would probably be a discussion. But Matthew and Brady Tkachuk talk like if we had been there, that never would have happened. So fast forward barely more than a week. JT Miller cross-checks Thomas Chabot out of the game. Now, it's a little different. It's not a knee-on-knee. Brady might not have seen right there, right then, in that second, this clearly dirty thing. And even if he does, there's only a second left in the period. There's not much he can do about it. But when you go through the intermission and you find out, Hey, Thomas Chabot, who is carrying the mail right now for the Ottawa Senators because Jake Sanderson is hurt and is going to need to rush back now. When you come out for the second period, dude, you better be keyed in. You better make a physical impact. You'd better say, hey, that shit that happened, while not as dirty as the Gudis on Matthews thing, was still not okay. You hurt our best guy. At least our current best defenseman. And this is where we come all the way around, full circle, on having to go elbow deep in Stegosaurus shit to get to what people really think. You have to go through legitimate arguments on, hey, this Sens game against the Red Wings is way less important if they don't win the game against the Rangers. The Rangers are garbage. The Rangers aren't playing well. They've largely given up. Like, good on the Sens for grabbing 4 points from 2 original 6 franchises that have just rolled over and showed you their belly in the Leafs on Saturday and the Rangers on Monday. Like, you better grab those 4 points, and they did. So the argument that a lot of people will give you is he can't be taking a crazy, unsportsmanlike penalty or a 5-minute this or giving up a power play that allows the Rangers to score. And that's reasonable enough. It really is. But you have to take that next step. You have to be willing to go one step further when you want to defend Brady Tkachuk and go, the point isn't whether or not you can afford to take a penalty right here, right now in this game. The point is that you were just on microphone, unsolicited, unforced. This wasn't some reporter holding your feet to the fire in a press conference, which apparently we're also not allowed to do to poor sensitive Brady after the Olympic Games. This was you. You brought it up voluntarily on your show and said, ha, that would never happen on my team. It just happened on your team, and you did nothing. Absolutely nothing. So the point isn't whether or not he should have taken a major penalty. The point isn't whether or not he was even willing to say a negative word to Team USA buddy, JT Miller. The point is, you didn't have to say it. You didn't have to put yourself in that situation. You didn't have to be on record. You didn't have to be out there going, if you come after our best players, we'll come after your... and then do nothing. You did that. You recorded that. You sent that out to the internet. And less than a week later, you are in a situation, and it's only your fault, where fans now get to point and go, where are you, man? Because every hockey fan's definition of, hey, that's dirty. Nah, that's just hockey. No, that's dirty. No, that's just hockey. There's always going to be a group that says you can go a little further. There's always going to be a group that says that's too far. When the Sens are battered and their playoff lives are on the line, and Thomas Chabot, a longtime warrior for the team who is now carrying the mail for the blue line, gets cross-checked out of the game and possibly out of the season, you did nothing. And he would absolutely have the right to come out after the game if anybody, I don't even know if any media was traveling with the Sens for this one, which has become its own problem here lately. He would be able to come out and easily stand there and go, it's just too big of a time for us right now. It makes me furious what happened, even if he does go have a beer with JT Miller afterwards. Probably not a beer. There's a flight to Detroit to catch, but at least a hug and a dap up and whatever else these fucking guys do. He would be able to say with a straight face to the media, yeah, just wasn't the right time. I'll have to repay that later. Except you just went out there on your own podcast and said that would never happen on one of my teams. Well, here we are. It just happened on your team. Like I said, it was different in the sense that in the moment, you can't tell exactly how dirty it was, what the ramifications were going to be. Like, it is a slightly different situation, but there are 40 minutes left where you could have responded and didn't. And for whatever reason you chose not to, you're still on the record judging another team, putting yourself up a little higher, and saying, man, not on my team. I would never allow that. Okay. Where are you, big boy? And obviously, the rest of the NHL on Monday night and throughout the day on Tuesday circled around that, pointed that out, and certainly identified the hypocrisy of it. But what was shocking to me was Ottawa's reaction to it, which was very split. But there is a sizable group of Ottawa Senators fans right now unhappy enough with Brady Tkachuk to be posting the same thing. Not just pointing at it, not just alluding to these podcast clips, but actually like going and finding the clip from his show and go, is this you, big man? Does Thomas Chabot not count as one of your top players that we will go after if you come at? It's really interesting to see where the vibes are right now on Brady Tkachuk. Now, I'm recording this early Tuesday afternoon. Huge game against the Red Wings. If Brady Tkachuk puts up a goal and 2 assists or whatever else, has a big impactful night, Sens go on to make the playoffs, he's incredibly impactful, he can repair this. These relationships can be salvaged. But man, people seem sour on Brady right now. I know there was a bunch of talk going into the Olympic Games about him not fully engaging, him not really being a part of what the Senators are doing. And if he ramps it up at the Olympics and shows that he could have been doing more for us, it's going to be a bad look. At the time, I said, buckle up. That is what's going to happen. Not just for Brady, but guys across the league. When they get to the Olympics, they will play harder. I'm not sure I saw enough out of Brady at the Olympics that would allow anyone to make a credible argument that he had been dogging it for the Sens, ramped up for the Olympics, and then went back to dogging it for the Sens when he got back. But people are unhappy with his play. He's still putting up points at a reasonable rate, but there's something about his game that's a little different right now. And maybe he is hurt. But we get a thing like a week ago, 10 days ago, less than that, where apparently Travis Green has a conversation with him, and he has a meaningless fight against Anders Lee off the opening faceoff. And look, you're the captain. Set the tone. Get going, right? We need some energy here tonight. We need you doing great. He has a fight. It did ignite the crowd. The Sens did go on to win that game. He scored the winning goal. He's full value for that. But now, in a case where your top defender has gone down from a cross-check, you can't be bothered to even rough up JT Miller? It's a bad look, man. And Sens fans are the most credible people right now to be pointing it out. If some Toronto fan or Montreal fan or Boston, whoever the hell else, stumbles into the hashtag Sens conversation, Ottawa fans have reason enough to elbow that guy away and say, yeah, no, get out of here. We don't care what you think. But Ottawa fans right now seem to have, and it's not universal, but there's a bit of dissatisfaction with Brady Tkachuk. That, yeah, you're still putting up points, but you're not doing the things that made you, what's the term everybody always used? A unicorn. He's not really doing those things. And the fight against Anders Lee did him a favor. Islanders captain. Maybe it's in that great Team USA group chat. Hey man, I need something here tonight, show everybody I'm engaged. But when something real goes down and you have just put yourself on record on your own podcast and you aren't there and you do nothing out of the ordinary the rest of the way, the point isn't, like, for me and for a lot of the tweets I'm reading, the point isn't what people keep trying to shove down your throat is the game was too important and you can't take a penalty and all that. That's fine, man. That's a totally reasonable perspective. But he just put himself in that spotlight. He just went out and said, hey, I would never allow that to happen on my team. Well, your team badly needs Thomas Chabot right now. And they don't have him. And you did nothing. So I don't know. I don't know if he's hurt. I don't know if he's disengaged. But an awful lot of, and it's certain, again, it's not all. I don't even know if it's half. But there is a sizable portion of Ottawa Senators fans right now who seem disenchanted with their captain. That opens up a whole other can of worms for down the road and how long he's going to stay. I don't know. Like I said, a huge game tonight against Detroit, a solid stretch run, and a big playoff performance, regardless of how far Ottawa may or may not go. All of this can be forgotten. But I don't know that I've ever seen social media around Ottawa as, I don't want to overstate it, but like irritated or disenchanted or unenthusiastic about Brady Tkachuk. It's strong right now. And this thing on Monday night, I saw more Ottawa fans than anybody else going and grabbing the clip from the podcast. So, you know, you can point at me, you can point at other people and say, it's just other fan bases trying to dunk on him, and this is different. Maybe. But there's an awful lot of Ottawa fans who went and found that clip too and said, what you doing, big dog? And I don't think the point is that he should have gone out and put JT Miller's head through the glass. Although I personally wouldn't have held it against him. The point is that this is right after you have put yourself above this, right? You have pointed at someone else and said, you failed where I wouldn't have. And now a comparable, different, but similar situation has presented itself for your team, and you didn't meet the moment. I find that fascinating. I find all of this fascinating. Like I said, there are some members of the local media who pounded on Toronto for a week after it happened for something that had nothing to do with their team. And I get it. Part of covering the Sens is being willing to point and laugh at Toronto. I don't know if that's journalism, but that is part of the deal here, and that's fine. But none of them are talking about this today. Fans are talking about it, but the media is not. Something that had 6 or 7 days legs when it was that team down the highway we don't like has no legs for even one day in the nation's capital. That's interesting to me, man. I wonder what Ian Mendez and the Sens PR team thinks of their captain having a podcast like this during times like this. They're obviously not going to tell him not to. And I have no idea. Maybe they think it's good for the brand, right? Get him out there, have him be more available, like some of these NBA guys, like some of these NFL guys. But in a moment like this, where you go and you point at someone else for not doing something, and less than a week later, you don't do that thing, I wonder what that job looks like in-house for the Sens. I think if the podcast never happens, there are some Sens fans, a couple of Sens fans, a few Sens fans who say, oh man, I wish Brady or somebody, maybe even more accurately, maybe like Nick Cousins, reacts to the fact that it is a cross-check that takes Chabot out of the game and he's clearly going to miss some time. You have 40 minutes left here. Somebody needs to react to that. Reasonable enough. But I think coming on the heels of the podcast and the, let's face it, the Olympic thing and the political thing and the weeks leading up to the Olympic thing where Brady wasn't performing at least at a level where a lot of fans would have. And again, his point totals are going to be fine by the end of the year. It's the other things, right? It's the stuff that made Brady special that everyone has gotten used to seeing him do. It feels like that's the part that's been missing. And you just sort of, it's this perfect storm right now. It's the timing to his criticism of another team. It's the fact that it's Thomas Chabot that goes down after Sanderson is already down. It's the fact that it's being committed by one of his Olympic teammates, and it's on the heels of the White House visit and all of this stuff that allows for a little bit of, come on, man. You got to give me something here. Just a hard hit on the guy throughout the rest of the game. Like, okay, you're not going to grab him and force some staged fight and whatever else. Find a moment, line him up, and bury him. Because the Rangers were disengaged. You could have fucked him up at some point with a hard hit and been able to say to him afterwards in the Team USA group chat, hey man, it's just hard hockey. It's no, nothing. So I can't say I'm impartial. Obviously, I'm not a Sens fan. Obviously, I'm not a fan of Brady's politics. So all of that should be on the table. But I have found it fascinating to watch Sens hockey Twitter react to this. And there are people who will protect him to the day he dies. And there are other people who are completely fed up with what they feel is a disengaged Brady. And it certainly felt like it all reached a boiling point on Monday night. Like I said, nothing unsalvageable. A big Tuesday, a big playoff drive, a big playoff run, all of it can be salvaged. But right now, it sort of feels like he's kind of just, I don't know, doing what he's supposed to do. Sens fans are just going through what they're supposed to go through, and who knows where it ends up. But I mean, I'm seeing people online calling for the C to be ripped off his shirt. Strong, man. Maybe that's just part of the Tyrannosaurus shit pile. I think I'm out of dinosaur references or names. My nephew would be disappointed in me. He went through a major dinosaur phase where kids 4 or 5 years old at the time and ripping off 4-syllable dinosaur names that I can't. Right? He'd be upset that I don't remember more of these names. But I mean, they really only focused on a few different dinosaurs in the movie, so it was probably T-Rex shit they were digging through, right? Is this unpleasant? All the shit talk here? It's time to go, right? Huge game for the Sens on Tuesday against the Red Wings to at least put the Red Wings behind them in the standings. Even if it isn't necessarily now for the playoff spot, the Islanders are going to be in this, CBJ is in this, Boston is still within reach, Montreal is within reach. We'll see what happens here on Tuesday night. It's going to be a big one, and we'll see what happens. Lots of baseball talk here to come over the next little while on the podcast with the Blue Jays firing up their season on Friday, so we'll get into tons of that, no doubt, as we go. But for now, that's where we'll wrap this one up. Thanks so much for listening. Try to take it easy on me in the comments, in the mentions on social media. Some of this is my own opinion. Some of this, as I said, is just fascination with your own city's reaction to this. My name is Matt Robinson. Have yourselves a great day. We'll catch you on the next one.